So, my journey to Colorado and to the United States happened in 1997 when my mom, a single mother, decided that she wanted to bring my younger brother and I to the United States. And we grew up in California where my mom sold cheesecake and flan door to door to be able to make a living. Eventually, she got a job in the university system as a janitor, and she's been there now for over 20 years. I started my profession and my career in political activism, and in 2016 I moved to Colorado to work on various progressive campaigns. In 2018 I had the opportunity to purchase a food truck where my journey in the food entrepreneurship began, and I haven't looked back since. And I believe that my entrepreneur spirit and my immigrant spirit have contributed a lot to not only how I cook, how I do business, but how I am involved in my community. My food truck is a Hawaiian food truck, but my nationality is Mexican. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, and when I purchased the food truck, it was already an established food truck as Stokes Poke. When I took over the food truck, I decided to do a little bit of flair into the food, and so I introduced things like poke nachos, poke tacos, and including a marinade that has chiles from Mexico, limes, and just spices that traditionally you would use probably like on a birria. And so I was able to infuse those two together. And since then, I've been able to sell not only in the food truck my poke and various chicken dishes, but as well as in catering and a lot of corporate events. Today I'm preparing a poke negro. Traditionally, you have a ahi tuna poke, spicy poke, shoyu poke, but I decided to infuse traditional Mexican stuff like a tortilla, chile guajillo, limones, some spices that can infuse almost like a ceviche, but not quite, because a ceviche, you have to let it marinate, you have to let it steep. This is more of just a quick marinade, keeping the Hawaiian flavors of an ahi tuna, but infusing it, for example, with a burnt tortilla. And so that I'm really excited to be able to try and show others that we can infuse two different cultures together to have something delicious. I do get my hands in the kitchen quite often, so I have learned from folks that I've hired to come on as chefs and cooks in my company, but also from recipes, from calling my mom, literally being on the phone and be like, "Ama, how do you make this rice? And like, what do you put on it that makes it taste so good?" And, my mom's recipes, my tia's recipes, but for the most part, I have trained cooks and chefs that work for me who teach me how to make these delicious foods. And so I am happy to be able to own a food business, because then when I'm at home, I can throw down and create some delicious food. Introducing Mexican cuisine in Colorado, I think it's not that big of a far-fetch, because Colorado was once Mexico, and so there is a lot of Mexican culture here already. And so I think one of the things is that it's been kind of distorted a little bit. Mexican tacos and tacos have been not so quite authentic. And so I am so happy that I bring back authenticity to a taco, where I don't do any of the pickled cabbage or pickled anything. It's straight cilantro, cebolla, the meat, the salsa, and the tortilla, and all of those things together make a perfect taco. And so I'm happy and proud to be able to keep authenticity into my menu. The key elements that I try to preserve in my cooking has to be the authenticity. So making sure that I go and I buy my produce from the local Mexican market, that I get my meat and my marinades from the local butcher in a Mexican butcher shop. And so I tend to support small local businesses, but also hire traditional Mexican people who have been making this food for their families for years. And so imagine me having the señora who makes delicious salsas, and now being part of my staff, those salsas and those traditions that she has from her culture, from her part of Mexico, are coming into my business and sharing that to all my customers. Building a sense of Colorado and building community here, for me, has been instrumental in my business. As a DACA recipient, I know firsthand the struggles of being an undocumented immigrant in this country. And so being an entrepreneur has allowed me to not only open the doors for myself, but showcase that entrepreneurship is a viable option for many people in this country, specifically without documentation. I've been able to use my story to showcase that we need laws passed in the state that will allow undocumented and immigrant folks to be able to get ahead. One of the proudest moments of my career has been able to lend my voice to the state legislature in 2019 to be able to pass a law that would allow undocumented people, regardless of the immigration status, to get a business license in the state and also a professional license. So if you want to become a chef, a esthetician, start your own business, you're able to do that regardless of your immigration status. And so I've been able to fuse my cooking, my entrepreneurship with community every step of the way in my business. Part of my activism and part of my joy of being able to share that entrepreneurship is a viable option for many folks, regardless of your immigration status, I decided to write a quick how-to guide, a sort of like book of showcasing the steps that I've taken from licensing to marketing to access to capital, that it shows step by step for others that might be thinking of starting a business or probably already make something like my mom did, making flan and cheesecake from home. You know, my mom could have never scaled that business into a profession. It was something more of like making ends meet. I wanted to take it to a next level where if you are cooking from home, what are the next steps that you can take to be able to get into a commercial kitchen, to be able to get your first big contract, to be able to start a catering business? As an immigrant and a first generation entrepreneur, I think stories and the background of us being present in the state is important, and being able to have my story documented and preserved in the Colorado archives is huge. It is a victory not only for me, but for the community, because we're able to showcase that we are here in this country as contributors, not only in labor, but in culture and in food. And that makes me very excited to be able to just showcase, and for generations to come, that if I'm able to open a door, that other doors can continue to be open. And we're not closing this door anymore. It's open now, and we're moving forward and showcasing that entrepreneurship, food, are viable options here in this state. The one thing that I hope people take from my food today and the lessons and my story is that entrepreneurship is a viable option for immigrants and undocumented people in this state. We need to survive, we need to thrive, and we need to build culture. And so I'm so proud to be able to not only share a recipe, but more important, share that there are people like me in this community who are starting often from nothing, who are looking to be able to raise their family, to grow, to be able to live freely in this state. And I'm so happy to be able to be a person that showcased that it is possible, that we are able to not only succeed, thrive, but also create culture in this state. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Alejandro Flores Munoz. I am the proud owner of Stokes Poke Food Truck and Combi Taco Catering. I'll tell you as we're kind of preparing the dish, a little bit about myself and everything. But let me start kind of with my story of like how I even got involved with poke, right? Like today I'm featuring poke, which is traditionally Hawaiian. I've been to Hawaii twice, business purposes, you know, because I have to go and figure out how to best make the best poke in town. And so I have taken 2 business trips to Hawaii and brought back a lot of the culture. And one of the things that I've been able to learn there is that the culture between Mexico and Hawaiian folks and other parts of the world, at the end of the day, they're like family, right? Recipes are passed down, cooking styles are passed down. And similarly to Mexican folks, you know, the tias, the grandmas are the ones cooking and passing down the recipes. When I went to Hawaii, both times, not only did I meet with local fishermen on how to sustainably catch ahi tuna, but also went to the local grocery store where they sell poke, because I was like, if there's a Mexican grocery store like carniceria where they sell prepared meals. I'm like, I'm sure they have that in Hawaii too. And they did. That was some of the best poke I ever tried, was literally from a grocery store. It wasn't even a restaurant, it was just a grocery store that sells poke. I bought my food truck in 2018, and it was already an established business. Everything was already there. The brand, the name, the food truck, the ingredients, the recipes, everything. So I purchased a turnkey business. And it was very difficult for me to actually transition into being a small business owner, because my background is I am an activist and an organizer by heart. I came to this country in 1997 through no fault of my own. My mom, a single mother, decided that she wanted to bring my younger brother and I, Alexis, to the United States. And so we immigrated here. And I grew up here knowing of my status, but not really knowing what my status was. It wasn't until I turned 18 where everything hit the fan, right? And I was like, this is my life, and I am an undocumented immigrant, and we have to survive and live through this world. And so thankfully, in 2012, when I turned 21, I was able to qualify for DACA. I'm not sure if a lot of you have heard, but DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which means that you have a protected status in this country. You are able to work here legally. You are able to be deferred from deportation, so we're not a target. We are able to have a sigh of relief. And I've been fortunate enough to be a DACA recipient, and it's been battled in the courts for many years. But one of the things that I knew back then was that this was not a permanent solution, that I needed to have a backup plan. And my backup plan was entrepreneurship. I started a few what I like to call side hustles, where I was just making a living, extra bit of money outside of my full-time job, which was a community organizer, registering people to vote, knocking on doors, letting them know about the upcoming election, working for progressive candidates, all through the United States. I traveled and worked in the Bronx, in Vegas, in Connecticut, in Boston. One of my gigs ended up being in Denver, and that's how I ended up here in 2016, where I still had side hustles, just like many of my family members have side hustles. They have their full-time jobs and have to have an extra sort of income to be able to survive in this country, right? Because we are often, as immigrants, as documented immigrants, are paid minimum wage and not often benefit from all the benefits of a labor or benefits that are given to you as a tax-paying citizen. And so we resort to side hustles. And my mom has always, to this day, been a side hustler. She's a janitor for the University of Irvine in California. But when we first came to this country, she sold cheesecake and flan door to door. And so I know firsthand what it is to be an entrepreneur, but a food entrepreneur. Looking back now, I realize that my mom taught me valuable lessons without actually sitting me down and saying, all right, mijo, let's put together a marketing strategy, right? Or like, what's gonna be our P&L, our profit and loss, right? None of that ever existed within my family. However, day in and day out, I would see my mom go to the grocery store and be like, you know what? The vanilla extract is on sale right now. I'm gonna buy 6 of them because that's gonna give me more return on my investment, right? It wasn't those words, but that's what she was thinking, and that's where I was literally next to her while she was making these decisions. And so now, as a small business owner, I look back and I think back of my lived experiences, which is huge. And I think that this entire program is about lived experiences. As an immigrant, as a person of color, as a first-generation entrepreneur, these are all valuable lessons and things that I've realized that there are barriers to entry. Even for myself, somebody who's well-knowledged in policy, who's well-knowledged in the language, in how to navigate systems. Even for me, it wasn't that difficult, but still, right? Like figuring it out, I could see how somebody within my community, like my mom or my tia, would stop when the first obstacle came on board. And so I've made it my life mission not to only right? Build generational wealth for myself, but how can I showcase that entrepreneurship is a viable option for folks, specifically immigrants and undocumented folks. I am proud that in 2019, my story and my narrative and my testimony helped change a law in Colorado, allowing folks, regardless of your immigration status, to be able to apply for business licenses, which is huge. Allowing them to be able to get professional licenses. So if you wanted to become an interpreter, a esthetician, somebody that holds a professional license, you can go ahead and apply for it and get it. Today, I am going to be showcasing one of what got me into the food world, which is poke. And when Julia asked me to do something, I was like, I have to come up with something good, right? And I actually tried this recipe once before, so this is the second time I tried this recipe. And it was great, it was fantastic. And I got it from going to eating at one of my favorite restaurants, which is La Diabla, and they are a pozoleria, they make pozole and mezcal. But they have this pozole that is a pozole negro. And traditionally, I've only had pozole rojo and sometimes pozole verde, but never pozole negro. And so I was like, wow, this is actually really good pozole. And so I know the chef, and him and I worked in the past, and so I was like, what is it that you're making? And so it was all in the spices and the type of chiles you choose and kind of the stuff, right? And so I was like, I think I can do the same for a poke. And so today, that's what we're going to be making. We're going to be making a poke negro. And let me tell you something about poke. It is one of the easiest dishes to make, I believe. There's some prep that you have to do, right? So like you have to cut all the vegetables, you have to have all your marinades ready, but essentially you're not necessarily cooking anything other than the rice, which also, by the way, the rice is very important. So you have to wash your rice. You have to maybe add a little bit of rice vinegar, definitely salt, and that's it, right? But so it's very important. Don't think that rice is not. It's just like for a taco, the tortilla is very important. Same thing here for a poke bowl. The rice is very important. So remember that as you are recreating this dish in the summer, and summer and spring are coming, which is my busy season. So when you do this for friends, I'm not sure if the recipe is going to be shared with you all, but I did it for 25 people, just in case you ever need to do it for 25 people. That's what the recipe's for. I don't know how to cook for less than 25, to be honest. So last year, or 2 years ago, we secured a contract with the city of Denver doing meals for emergency shelters, for migrant shelters, folks coming from Venezuela, immigrating here, and we were doing about 1,000 meals a day. And so I did that for a year and a half, and when we stopped, I was like, how do you make rice for 50 people? Like, we were making rice for 1,000 people, so we had to like figure everything back up. So today, me making meal for 25 people, it was a little challenging, but we managed. So one of the things that we're starting off with here is our base, which is our ahi tuna. Ahi tuna there are various types of ahi tuna, which I learned in one of my business trips to Hawaii. It's just business trip, I promise. Which is like, yellowfin tuna and different types of tuna and cuts and just the type of section that you get and why is it more expensive and all these little things. And so, what we're having today is a very accessible type of fish, which is a yellowfin ahi tuna. And what I did today is I marinated before coming in here, and it's a simple marinade. This marinade is called a shoyu marinade, like a shoyu poke, SHUYO, and it is simply a sesame seed oil with a soy sauce. You can add a few more things to finish the marinade process, like sweet yellow onion, which is you can put it in there and marinate it with it, as well as maybe some pepper flakes, a little bit of salt, not too much because the soy sauce already contains sodium and salt. We're using a low sodium base here because I am going to add a little bit more salt to the sauce that we're making. But in here is just literally roasted sesame seed oil with soy sauce. So that's the base. I did the same thing for our vegetarian friends, which is just tofu, sesame seed oil, and sesame seeds, and some very mild pepper flakes. These are used usually when you're making like a kimchi. Folks use that there, but I also added to the poke and the ahi tuna. All these things that you see chopped up, like the pineapple, the carrots, the cabbage, cucumber, onion, tempura flakes, those are all toppings, right? So you're gonna add that to your bowl however you want that. You can go a little bit extra if you wanna start marinating your toppings with some soy sauce or some vinegar, so other different things to make it like a pickled, for example, pickled carrots or pickled cabbage. You can go that route. I personally like to leave it like fresh and give it that fresh taste, but there's so many things that you can go you can do here. You can grill your pineapple. You can just do various things to your toppings, right? Those are just extras that you're adding to your mix. Technically, we can get a bowl, put rice, some of this fish, and your toppings, and that's it. Cooking class is over, everybody. But today we're going to take it a little step further, which is the poke negro sauce. And this ingredients right here kind of remind me of a birria. I have made a lot of money selling birria, and birria is, I love birria, first of all. I'm from Guadalajara, Mexico, when I remember vividly going to my tia's house, and she has a literal taco shop in front of her house selling birria tacos only, right? I'm sure you all of you have picked up on the big trend, probably it's been like 5-10 years maybe now, of the birria trend of like birria tacos, right? Like I grew up with that when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. And so when I remember seeing birria trending, I called my tias in Mexico and I was like, how do you make the birria? And literally, I took screenshots of what they sent me on Facebook Messenger. And then I began hiring señoras, ladies, tias, moms to come and work for my company and kind of like give them the rubric of the birria recipe, and they'll be like, have you ever tried adding this? And I'll be like, no, but let's do it. My recipe of birria has evolved, and I would say it is one of the best in town. I'm not even lying. Because when I go, trust me, like this is one of the things that sucks about having a restaurant, is that when you go to another restaurant, specifically like the downtown restaurant, Mexican restaurants, I'm always like, this is not a taco. This is not salsa. This is not birria. So, you know, that's where I compare myself to. I'm comparing myself, my birria, to the downtown Denver establishments. Not the federal ones. The federal ones sometimes, they could beat me. So if they're in the competition, I'm like, okay, there's a challenge. So here we have is a chile ancho, which is a darker type of chile. And what I did is you have to first, very important, take off all the seeds. If you don't take off the seeds, it becomes bitter. So be sure that you clean it, take off your seeds, and then you have to rehydrate it because this is a dried chile. It's been dried, and it's not as spicy. It almost has almost no spice to it, but it's, as you can see, a very dark color. We're making a poke negro, which negro translates to black, just those of you who don't know that. And then we're also adding some tomato, which I charred in advance because we don't have the system to do that here, as well as some garlic. Some garlic, roasted garlic, and the main thing is a burnt tortilla, a charred tortilla. I did 3 of them, but I'm probably only gonna use 1 for the type of sauce that I'm gonna be making here today. And this is what's gonna be giving the Mexican flavors to our poke. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna put this on the side so we can all add it onto our bowl and not necessarily marinate it with the ahi. You could start with just this simply, and what I would do is I would add soy sauce onto here. So the ingredients that we used for the marinade for this ahi tuna is I would add them here, and then coat and marinate everything together. But because of timing, I decided to marinate the ahi tuna in advance so that by the time we start eating, it's already nice and flavorful. And we're just gonna mix this. We'll see how much fits in here. If we need to do 2 rounds, we could do 2 rounds. All right, so I think, yeah, actually, let me do it in 2 rounds. I'm also gonna add a little bit of sesame seed oil onto here, just a little bit because we already have it in the sauce, but I love sesame seed oil, y'all. Like, so aromatic, it's tasteful, I love it. I even add it to my rice when I'm just like having regular rice, just sesame seed oil and piece of chicken, and then we're set. I have to tell you all this story of this sea salt straight from Hawaii. So when I went there on one of my business trips, I bought this at the grocery store where I bought poke, right? And when I was coming back, I got stopped by TSA, and they had to test this to make sure it wasn't cocaine. So I was like, I promise, I'm not Pablo Escobar. This is salt. So I did get pulled to the side. I was scared. I was like, ugh. But it came back negative, so which is great. So we're gonna add a little bit of Hawaiian sea salt, as well as some fresh squeezed lime. So this could be also, the first time I made this recipe, I made it like a ceviche. So I actually let the ahi tuna marinate with lime. This time we're not doing a lot of lime, we're just doing a little bit for flavor. The last time I did this, it was el ceviche. It was a ceviche negro versus a poke negro. But same concept, same thing, is just ceviche, you have to let the limes marinate the fish until it's cooked. I like lime, so let's do a little bit more. Also, one of the things in my kitchen, I have a commercial kitchen where I employ about 5 different workers. They're all female. I have an all-female staff, which is great. And except 2 of them got pregnant at the same time. And I had to be short-staffed for a minute. They're the ones who make all my food. We cater large events, 50 to 200 folks events. That's our normal. This month we have, in April actually, we have 3 events of 500 people events, back to back, 2 on the same day. I was like, yo, we're gonna be working very hard. I'm gonna add a little bit of cilantro as well, some water. Should be enough. And what am I missing here? Let me see. Oh, the burnt tortilla. I want to use the most charred parts of it. All right, there we go. This sauce is not gonna be spicy at all. Very flavorful. In my kitchen, we hardly measure stuff because I have literally 4 señoras working for me, and the way that they measure things, literally in their hand like this, and they just toss it in a big pot. We're making rice, and they're just like, yeah. And I'm like, all right. It always comes out great. So here, same thing, I have to try it. Might need a little bit more salt now that I think about it. But we'll see. All right, what is it missing? It's missing something. More lime. So this is the beautiful thing about cooking, is that as you're cooking, you're trying it. You're seeing like, what are your flavors? What are you missing? What do you like? And listen to your palate. Listen to what you're used to. Always, always. Cooking is a beautiful thing. You're sharing your flavors, your passion with others. You're cooking for your family, your friends. So don't be afraid to like go off recipe sometimes and just, as long as you know what flavors are there, what you're looking for, have fun. Have fun with it. Who here cooks at home? Be honest. But like cook. Not like put it in a crock pot and, that's it. All right, so this is a little thick, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water, and I don't think I'm gonna add more chile. I'm not gonna add more tomato because it's good enough. I am gonna add a little bit more cilantro, a little bit more salt. And this is all the cooking I'm doing today, by the way, so like, we're almost done. Who here's hungry? Also, we're not just gonna eat poke. My team made tinga. So we're gonna have tostadas de tinga, which are my favorite, one of my favorites. My mom, that was like my mom's, and it continues to be my mom's, like, she's busy, she gets home and she makes tinga because it's easy, but it's really good. So we're having tinga as well. I've never done a cooking show like this before, so like, but it reminds me when I'm training my staff. Like, I do a similar setup for my team, and they have to try the food, what it tastes like, and all that stuff. And so, my team has been with me now for 3 years. So like, there's not a lot of this that we do anymore. I'm just trying to get the right consistency in here. It should be like very kind of liquidy. You want this to be a little bit liquidy. I'm gonna add some sweetness. I'm gonna add some pineapple on here. So we're pretty much done now. What I'm doing now is just chopping some chives for decorations on top of the poke bowls. But other than that, things are pretty much done. Yum. Wow. This sauce can literally, you can use it for like chilaquiles. You can make this like some chicken marinated in chicken. This right here, I'm gonna start selling it by the bucket.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you. Yes. There we go. So this recipe, literally, I saw it on TikTok. Somebody was making they were actually making a salsa, not a marinade or anything. It was a salsa, specifically with a burnt tortilla under the char to make it like as dark as possible. And that's where the idea came from. Also, funny story, one of my good friends, his name is Vicente Arenas. He's a reporter for Fox 31. Has been writing a book called The Burnt Tortilla. And I remember when he told me that story, I went and I bought him the domain and I gave it to him as a present. And it's so every time I say burnt tortilla, Vicente comes to my mind.
Has your mom been able to come visit you?
Yes, thankfully she came. She was here this Christmas. So one of the days, we do meals for a houseless shelter right now, and so regardless of the holidays, folks need to eat. And so one of those days happened to be Christmas Eve, and so I told my mom, I was like, you want to come with me and help me make the food? And she's like, absolutely. So one of the days, my mom, just me and my mom, I gave my staff the day off that day, went in and cooked 120 meals for the houseless shelter. So I was so happy that my mom was able to come by. Let me bring the rice over here. You grab a tostada. You add a little bit of tinga onto the tostada. I'm gonna show you, and then so I can eat it too. You add a little bit of beans onto it, on top like this. Yum, look at that. And then some cotija cheese and some sour cream, which I'm gonna bring over here right now.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Thank you.